guys, Welsknight here, and welcome to another episode of 30 Minutes of Game. Today we are taking a look at Total War Warhammer. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a different episode in this series, because normally for 30 Minutes of Game, it's a first impression series, and the 30 minutes of video you see are really my first 30 minutes with that game. I've got about 200 hours into Total War Warhammer 2 at this point, so I don't think I can call this a first impressions video. And I do have a couple things I want to talk about before we get into the game itself. So if you don't care about any of that, go ahead and skip to the timestamp that I'm putting on the screen right now, and that'll be where I actually start talking about Total War Warhammer 2. This is going to be kind of an introduction to the game, if you will, and kind of a pseudo review, sort of an intro. If this is a game that you're potentially looking at, or if this is a game you've never heard of and you kind of want to know what it's all about, this is going to be a video that will kind of explain all that for you and give kind of a broad overview of the game. I'm not going to go into every little detail because this would be you can't do it in 30 minutes. You could not do a full guide and introduction to Warhammer 2 in 30 minutes. It's just not possible. There's too much stuff going on. But if you are interested in Total War Warhammer 2, if you like what you see in this video, I have completed one campaign, and I have just started a second campaign on my second channel. There's a link to the second channel, Wells After Dark, in the description below if you want to see full-blown Let's Plays of this game. I love Warhammer, and I love Total War, more specifically. I've been a Total War fan for ages, for as long as Total War has existed. I love it. I really do. This game is near and dear to my heart. And I wanted to show this game off in 30 minutes of game on my main channel, even though it's not really a first impressions video. This is going to be a game that I truly love. And if you like games like Civilization, if you like games like Age of Empires, any of that kind of stuff, I think you'll really dig Total War Warhammer 2. It's so good. It really is. So let's kind of get into it a little bit. Now, the first thing you need to know about Warhammer 2 is that this is not an indie game. This is a AAA title. If you buy this thing at full price, you're going to pay AAA title price, and there is going to be DLC as well to get the full game experience, okay? That's very important to know. This is not a game that you're going to shell out $5 for and be done with it. I think, if I remember correctly, the game itself is $59.99 on Steam. It may be $69.99 on Steam. I'll have a link in the description that will have the price next to it. So I would, if that's a little more than you want to spend, I would recommend waiting for a sale. The game does tend to go on sale every so often, and you can usually get it for a discounted price. But personally, I mean, as someone who's already got 200 hours into this game, I think even at full AAA price, you're certainly getting your money's worth as far as hours spent for, hour per dollar, I guess would be the way to say it. So this is a 4X grand strategy game, kind of the same vein as games like Civilization, but the battles in it are real-time strategy, RTS battles. And it's very interesting in that way. Imagine if you had a game like Civilization, but rather than putting your units next to each other on the campaign map, and then they just kind of calculates the results, you could actually fight those battles and apply tactics to overcome your enemies to get a more favorable result, or to potentially get a huge win even when your units are outclassed. And that's kind of Total War in a nutshell. Like, this game does something that no other game really does quite as well, and I love it for that. So if you're booting up this game for the first time, I would strongly encourage you to kind of go through your options menu here. I'm not going to spend a ton of time, but the big thing is in your game settings, there's going to be a couple settings here that you may or may not want to enable. And also under controls, which is right here, if you look at these advanced controls, take a look at these, read through these, and memorize these, because these are going to allow you to control your units in the battles much more effectively if you know some of these keyboard shortcuts and stuff like that. So I would encourage you to do that as well. Now, there's a few things on the main menu. So you've got campaigns. This is kind of the main draw of Total War Warhammer 2. This is going to be like your single-player campaigns. You can do a multiplayer campaign with a friend, But campaigns in this game are not short. You're not going to complete a campaign in an hour or two. You're talking, well, let's see. The series that I just did on my second channel, the campaign I completed there was 25 episodes long, and every episode was a half hour to an hour. So kind of gives you an idea of just how long these campaigns can be. So multiplayer campaign, if you're going to do that, you're going to want to play it with someone you know, and someone who you can reliably play with over a period of time, because you're almost certainly not going to complete a campaign in one setting. Or one sitting, I should say. You also have battles here, and there's quest battles. These are kind of like storyline battles that you can do, and they have like an opening cutscene, and you're put into like specific pre-made situations, I guess, and you can fight those. You'll also encounter those in the campaign. That's going to be how you unlock special items. You've got custom battles here, where you can basically set different armies. If you want to, you can choose all the different factions, and you can play different armies, choose the units you want, and put them up against an AI controlled opponent with whatever army you want them to have as well. But so this is great kind of for testing, or for just practicing, or if you just want to have an epic battle of some sort. You can kind of set that up here. And then last, under the battles section, there are multiplayer battles, which is where you choose a specific battle, and then quick battles, which is kind of like your online multiplayer, where you will be matched against an opponent of supposedly roughly equal skill, and you make an army, and you try to fight their army and come out on top. One thing I will say about custom battles, this is also a really great place if you want to learn about the units themselves. So like you can click on this unit right here, and you'll see every unit available for every faction. So you can kind of look through these guys and kind of get an idea of their stats and their abilities and what they're good against and what they're not good against. And that is going to be kind of an important thing, because one element of being successful in this game is kind of knowing the best way to use your units, and what units will beat other units, and what units those your guys will lose against. So, for example, here we have Saurus warriors with shields as the lizardmen. These are a pretty solid mainline infantry. They have fairly good stats. They're going to be good to kind of hold the line against, most kind of mid-tier infantry. They will absolutely wreck. For example, if we go over here to the Skaven, they will absolutely wreck Skaven slaves, which are just cheap fodder infantry. Saurus warriors will destroy Skaven slaves in combat all day long. However, Saurus warriors are going to struggle a lot against something like, for example, these Death Globe Bombardiers, which are a ranged anti-infantry unit that does armor piercing, and Saurus warriors have relatively okay armor. So it's kind of knowing like what units are good and what units are not good, what situations are best to use certain things. So let's take a look at the campaigns. Now, there are two options currently in Warhammer 2. There's the Eye of the Vortex campaign. This is the one that you'll get by default. And then there's the Mortal Empires campaign. And this is basically a combined campaign map with all of the races from Total War Warhammer 1 and Total War Warhammer 2 on a combined campaign map of both the area in Total War Warhammer 1 and the area in Total War Warhammer 2. So the Mortal Empires campaign is huge. It is absolutely massive. And it is not something... The Eye of the Vortex campaign is long. The Mortal Empires campaign is even longer. It is a huge campaign, and you will get tons of time out of completing just a single one of them. Now, the Mortal Empires campaign, if you want to play this, you need to own both Total War Warhammer 1 and Total War Warhammer 2. So if you buy just Warhammer 1, you will not have the Mortal Empires campaign, but you also won't be in this screen because you'll be playing Warhammer 1. If you buy just Warhammer 2, you will not have the Mortal Empires campaign available to you because you need to own both to get the Mortal Empires campaign and all of those playable races. Some of these playable races are DLC for Warhammer 1. So like the Beastmen, the Wood Elves, who else? A couple of the specific legendary lords are DLC. If you want those races and those units and lords and stuff available to you in the Mortal Empires campaign, you need to have purchased the DLC. Basically, to summarize, if you want to have the stuff in Mortal Empires, you have to already own it. You have to pay for it, or you have to already own it. You're not going to get any of the Mortal Empires stuff for free just by buying Warhammer 2. But you won't have to buy it again if you have already purchased it for Warhammer 1. That's kind of the idea in a nutshell. So the main single-player campaign that's new in Warhammer 2 is this Eye of the Vortex campaign. It is very interesting. It's very cool, actually. I like it a lot. When you start it up, you'll have the availability of picking a lord and a race. So these guys are high elves. These are your lizardmen. These are your dark elves. These are your Skaven, which are like rat people. And you choose which lord you want to start. And they all have different bonuses and, kind of things that make their campaign a little bit different. Different starting locations, different units that they start with, certain buffs and debuffs. Like if we look at Queek, he has a debuff for Grey Seers, but he is better when fighting against, different things. These will, you don't really need to understand right now what all of these different things mean, because the purpose of this video is to provide a broad overview. On the other hand, just know that each of these lords is going to give you a slightly different or radically different campaign experience. So it is worth it to do 8 different campaigns as all 8 of these lords. And if Warhammer 2 is anything like Warhammer 1 was, which I'm sure it will be, there's going to be a lot more lords to pick from as DLC gets added over the coming months. So there will be more factions. Tomb Kings are pretty much confirmed at this point. There's going to be other legendary lords added and stuff, I'm sure. So your options here will increase as time goes on, because this video is being recorded in early November 2017. So that's a thing. So let's kind of dive into a campaign. Let's just dive into maybe a Queek campaign to start with. Or actually, let's dive into a Malekith campaign to start with here. So you got your difficulty over here. Legendary is super hard. Very hard is pretty hard. Hard is kind of where I like to play. Normal and easy. Basically, what changes between these difficulties, with the exception of Legendary, is just the number of buffs that the AI gets. And the number of debuffs that you as the player get. So the intelligence of the AI, as far as I know, doesn't really change a whole lot between the different difficulty levels, but it definitely does get harder as you move up and down the difficulty slider. So let's jump into a Malekith campaign here. And I'm going to skip the cutscene, but just know that there are some pretty cool cutscenes in this game when you start and all that kind of good stuff. I'm not going to show them off because the opening cutscene is usually at least a couple minutes long, and we have limited time in this video to give you kind of a broad overview of everything. So Total War Warhammer 2 is in many ways a sandbox 4X grand strategy game. Every campaign will be different. Things will happen differently in every single campaign. Sometimes, I'm going to skip this as well. Sometimes certain factions will become incredibly powerful. Sometimes you'll do a campaign and the dwarves will just take over the world. Sometimes you'll do a campaign and the dwarves will get wiped out within the first 30 turns. Every campaign is different. And in pretty much all of them, you're going to start with usually 1, maybe 2 provinces if you're lucky. You'll start with your lord and a handful of units, most of them fairly garbage units, like these Dread Spears and Dark Shards are, kind of low tier units. And then you've got my unique starting units, these Black Guards who are very, very strong elite infantry, and then a Reaper Bolt Thrower that's kind of a basic, it's actually the only artillery unit for Dark Elves. But you start out with a small area, and your goal is basically to conquer the world. And you can see your actual objectives what destroy these factions, stuff like that. The Vortex campaign is going to be reliant on you completing 5 rituals, and you will earn the resources to do each of those rituals over time by completing quests. Like here, for example, if we capture and occupy a settlement belonging to these Skaven, we'll get some ritual resources, or you can earn them by capturing certain provinces that will generate resources. Like I believe this one right here, Grand, will generate 10 ritual resources per turn. And that's going to be basically the same for all the different races. They'll all earn the ritual resource, and they'll all try to get enough rituals, enough of that resource to complete the 5 rituals. First one to complete the 5 rituals and win a final battle wins the campaign, essentially. You can also win the campaign by conquering the world, but realistically, by the time you're able to conquer the world, you will have been able to do the 5 rituals as it is. So let's kind of get into the draw of Total War Warhammer 2 and what sets it apart from other 4X grand strategy games. You do have your campaign management, your buildings, your units that you can recruit, and you can do diplomacy where you trade with certain people and sign non-aggression pacts and all this other kind of stuff. That's all there. But what really makes Total War amazing is the battles. So let's fight one. And I'll kind of show you why I love this game so much. So here's the plan. Let's fight these Skaven. These are Ratmen. And we're attacking them. This balance of power shows me that I have a pretty good chance of winning this one. I'm the yellow. They're the red. This says I should win this overwhelmingly. Sometimes this balance of power is not entirely accurate, so don't always rely on it, because sometimes it'll tell you that you're going to lose horribly, and then you'll be able to still win through superior tactics, basically. But it's kind of a good at-a-glance indicator of how you want things to work. So we'll fight these guys. Looks like we're fighting in the forest. Now, there are going to be certain benefits for different types of terrain. If you're in the forest, you're somewhat protected against artillery fire, which means my Reaper Bolt Thrower is going to be pretty much useless in this battle, unfortunately. We do have magic because this is a fantasy, this is based on the Warhammer tabletop by Games Workshop that's been around forever and ever. So we have fantasy stuff. We've got dragons, we've got monsters, we've got magic, we've got all sorts of crazy stuff. And we'll be able to kind of take advantage of this. So let's kind of zoom out just a little bit. And let's get the battle started. We'll start moving our units up. And somewhere in here, the Skaven are going to be around. We can't see them because the woods also kind of provide you concealment. You're not able to see units that are hidden in the woods until you're pretty much on top of them. But if we move up a little bit, we can fast forward some of this until we actually see some enemies. Oh, okay, there we go. So you can see we have enemies coming in. Now, here's the cool thing about Total War, right? We got these enemies. This is a unit of clan rat spears. You can see kind of on the left there on that unit card, there are 159 models out of 160. So there are 160 clan rats in this unit of clan rat spears. Damage and everything is calculated on the individual unit level. Also, I just realized I had my bows, my dark shards out front. That is not what I wanted to do. So we're going to get our blackguard charging up. We'll move our spears over a little bit, and we'll move these spears up as well. I want to get my dark shards back here. And you know what? Malekith. Let's use a little magic. We'll just throw down a chill wind right there, do a little bit of damage to these enemies. Looks like our dark shards did make it out with getting shot at. You stop, halt, and switch you to this. We'll start shooting at some of these guys. And now we can start shooting with our dark shards. We'll charge our spears in, hit the flanks, and this is going to do nasty damage. And you can come in and you can see the individual combat going on here between these units. We can hide the UI, and they're just going at it. They're just brutally attacking each other. And this is a beautiful game. It really is. I love it. You can get some very cinematic moments in this game. Oh, hello. Their lord is into my dark shards. That's no good. Let's pull one dark shard over here. Pull this guy over here. These are my archers, obviously. And it would be great if we can just shoot up their lord a little bit. There we go. And these guys, a lot of these guys are already running away, which is exactly what I want. Malekith is going to absolutely wreck their lord, because Malekith is very strong. We'll kind of chase some of these guys down. Get after them. Looks like these guys, the slingers came back. That's fine. Malekith, have you killed this guy yet? No? Are you shooting this dude? Because you should be. This guy, this Skaven warlord is going to get absolutely destroyed. Why are you not shooting? I don't want you to be so close to this. I want you to shoot him. Please. Can we... He's almost done. We're getting him. Slowly but surely. We're taking him out. Go get these guys. Who are these? Clanrat spears? Go get them. You're still chasing. Yeah, I think we're good. We should win this one pretty easily. So we'll kind of take all of these guys out. Just speed up the battle a little bit. They're running. What's actually left? These guys. Go get them. You get them. I'm going to catch them eventually. They may run. There we go. So we've got a victory. Now we have the opportunity to chase them down and kill as many of them as we want. But nonetheless, at the moment, it's not necessary. Not for the purposes of this little showcase video. And you can see then afterwards kind of an overview of how all these units did. So like our Blackguard of Nagaron did very well, 162 kills. Our Dread Spears did pretty well. Dark Shards didn't really do anything because they were just shooting at the Lord. And then we can have different options like ransom the captives, etc., etc. And those are going to be based on your faction as to what those effects will do. So that's kind of the start of a campaign. And you'll see we have money up here. We've got different things. All of the races in Warhammer 2 play very differently from each other, which is super fun. So now that that's done, let's jump into a campaign that's much farther along. Like, for example, let's jump into... let's jump into the... High Elves campaign that I just finished. Actually, no. Let's jump into my my Clan Moors Mortal Empires campaign, which is very interesting. Now, I should mention, I run this game off of an SSD. Loading times in this game can be pretty brutal if you do not have one, or if you have if you don't have a fairly powerful PC. You may struggle to run this game, and you will spend some time waiting for things to load. It's not like super bad to the point where the game is unplayable, but you will definitely be waiting for a little while for turns to end and for these loading screens while you're switching between different things. So that is something to keep in mind. But now, if we bump to a Mortal Empires campaign that's been going on for 260 turns, I control half the... I control... let's put this in perspective. The little area that we were just looking at is up here. And that's like right in this general area, right? This is the area that I now control in Mortal Empires. This big, huge, giant area down here. You can see I've got tons of income. I've got armies, just massive quantities of armies all over the place. All sorts of crazy stuff going on. And I love the fact that over time, you'll eventually become incredibly powerful. And you'll be able to fight much more advanced battles with better units and stuff as you get farther and farther into a campaign and kind of unlock the ability to do that. All of your lords and heroes that you'll recruit will have this big skill tree, and you can kind of customize them and what they're good at and what skills they get and all this other kind of stuff. And that's very cool. Like, it's super cool to have that ability where you can kind of buff them up and make them unique. They also have the ability to equip different armor and weapons, which will give him special abilities too. So like this guy, we could give him these rocket boots, which could be kind of fun. And that'll give him certain abilities that he wouldn't otherwise have. So there's a lot of depth as far as your characters go, and your ability to kind of make them unique over the course of a giant campaign. You'll also be able to upgrade buildings and get different units and different buffs and debuffs from those buildings. Some areas will have unique buildings. So like Skaven Blight, for example, since I'm playing as the Skaven, there's a couple special buildings up here that give huge bonuses, faction-wide bonuses that are just very good, like plus 6% tax rate faction-wide. That is super, super good. There's just all sorts of stuff here that you can kind of take over and conquer. But let's go ahead and end a turn really quick. I just want to kind of skip through this and hope... You're not in Force March, are you? No. Let's see if we can maybe force a battle. Just so you guys can kind of see the scale of Total War Warhammer 2 battles once you get kind of into the later game, because they can be absolutely incredible in scale, and they can turn out to be just super fun. Okay, there we go. So the turn has ended. I'm going to move this guy up. I don't know if he'll be close enough. He is. Okay, so we could fight a battle here to take over this walled settlement. They have a lot of enemies. I have a lot of Skaven. And we could fight something like this. And this is kind of an example of like a much larger and more epic battle in this campaign. These are late game units. These are late game armies that are very powerful compared to what we get when we're just starting out. You know, like these storm vermin with shields that I'm using here for the Skaven are some of their best units. These Plague Claw catapults are just like insanely powerful. And over on the other side, these great swords are no joke. They're very strong. And you'll learn over time as you play the game what the units are good at and what the names of the units are and all this other kind of stuff. That's something that'll kind of come to you over time. So let's just kind of go for it. We've got these Plague Claw catapults that we're going to use to bust down the gates and bust holes in the walls. We'll deploy all of our storm vermin up here. Let's actually move these back a little bit further. Yeah, they can still reach the walls. Okay, good. And we're going to have reinforcements coming in from right here as well. That's where that second army will appear. We've also got these guys, which I will put like right here. These are gutter runners with the special ability to be hidden and to deploy wherever they want. We've got this monster. We've got our general right here. And let's kind of... Oh, and I've got these... I kind of want to hide these guys in the woods so they don't get shot at by the stuff on the walls. There we go. So we'll start that. And first thing I want to do is get my catapults to start shooting at the gate. They've got mortars. That's unfortunate. But my catapults should make fairly short work of this gate. Let's get our unit, let's get our whole army kind of moving up a bit. Kind of just start marching these guys upwards. Bring you up. Bring my lord up. I've also got some heroes from the reinforcing army that we can get up there. We've got more storm vermin we can start moving up from the second army. More catapults. Gates are still not destroyed. It would be great if you would hurry up and destroy those. I would appreciate that. And we've got so many units on the field right now. Let's kind of group those. Group those storm vermin. Group those guys. Group them. Group them. Just kind of save yourself a little bit of trouble. There we go. All right, so the gates have been broken. So now let's start blowing holes in the walls. In the meantime, we're going to charge... you know what? Let's just go straight in. Why not? We're just going to charge straight in with all of these guys. We'll send our first unit, or our first group of these storm vermin in as well. I'll get my poison wind globadiers over here. We're going to start busting holes in the second wall. So let's start bringing storm vermin over that way. This wall's going to go down fairly quick. And they're just piling in great swords, which is not exactly ideal, but that's fine. We'll use some healing abilities. We can also summon some rats right behind us here. Get those guys charging in as well. And you can see this can get very chaotic very quickly. Look at all this stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff happening here. It gets pretty crazy. And, you know, it can be a lot of fun. And when you have this many units, I mean, keep in mind. All right, keep in mind. Let's pause this for a sec. Right now, they have 2 full stacks, and there's 20 units per stack. So I have 2 full stacks. We're talking there are 80 different units on the battlefield right now. Most of them with 100 or more people in each unit, each animated down to the individual level. So when you have battles this big, sometimes it gets a little bit framey. We're a little bit framey right now. It's not entirely unexpected. Even on my computer, you will run into some of those problems. Let's do a spell right here. That should do some good work. Boom. That did some work. And then we'll do a scorch right there. And you can use magic and stuff to your abilities as well. And I'm not going to fight this entire battle. But, I mean, you can see the things can get very crazy very, very quickly. And that makes it a lot of fun. But, guys, I think that is going to do it for today's episode of 30 Minutes of Game. A reminder, if you enjoyed this episode, if you would like to see more Total War, check out my second channel, Wells After Dark, linked in the description. I'm going to be playing a lot of Total War over there. I've already completed 1 full campaign, and I just started a second one, and there will be at least a third, if not more than that, after the second one is over. So check that out if you want to see more of this. But honestly, I love Total War. If you enjoy games like this, I think you will love Total War. It's not without its issues. I mean, there are some bugs. There are some slightly questionable DLC practices. I mean, the game is not perfect, but I think it is worth every penny, and I have certainly got my money's worth out of every Total War that I've ever played. There's a reason that Total War is easily in my top 5 game franchises of all time. I have probably put more hours into Total War games as a whole than any other game in my entire life. Like, it's that engaging, and you get that much time out of each game, because every campaign plays differently. There's a ton of replay value. Like, it's just at that level. I mean, and you can go in and you can get so many cinematic moments and so many just epic moments where crazy things happen that it's just really worth it. I mean, look at this thing just going crazy and destroying everything in its path. You know? I mean, stuff gets wild. But anyway, guys, that is going to do it for me. If you enjoyed the video, you know what to do. Links in the description below, so check that out as well. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.